Hey, everybody. Hope you're all well. Hey, Adam. I see you. I'm unmuting you. You're unmuted. Good.
I'm good.
Nice. It's 7:59. We'll give this another minute, see who else shows up. Because out of respect for you, I told you we would start this at 8 o'clock sharp.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks. I'm just looking around. Paul has looks like some orange soda on his counter. Darren, chug that. Dr. Shaw is about to give you his mobile. He likes to spin in circles as he talks and walks. And you're going to feel like you're in like an old Castle Wolfenstein 3D. Watching Doug. He's always.
It's wild. It's a wild experience.
There it is.
Nice. Well, it's 8 o'clock.
Adam, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you too. Yeah, where are you based out of?
I'm here in Dallas with Glenn.
Okay, awesome.
We're not like we're partners, but not like that kind of partners. Not that I'm judging. I see everybody out there. And by the way, I don't know. It's hard for me to see everybody who's both driving and not driving. So Jonathan, Ohi, please keep your eyes on the road. Don't look at me, okay? Though I'm Ohi, you're looking everywhere, dude. What are you looking for? Is there somebody after you or something? It's crazy, dude.
Drive like I stole something.
Yeah, you look like you're driving like you stole something, dude. Just be careful. So, yeah, Adam's
in real life.
Adam, we like to have fun in this group, and we're genuinely fortunate to have Adam Mead tonight. And before I introduce him, I know there's probably right now I see about 20 of us on here. I just want to ask if there's anybody out, and I'm not looking at all the names to see who's who, but if there's anybody out there in Houston or from the west coast of Florida or South Florida who's here that needs any help of any kind, please let us know. We're here to help all of you. And if any of you know of anybody in those areas who needs help, certainly you all saw the power of what happened on the regular Orthopreneurs group after Houston, where we raised, I don't even know what the final tally was, but when Brian Anderson put up that post for Ian Healy, who lost his practice the day after he signed on it, I think we raised something like $75,000 in like less than 24 hours. So if anybody knows of anybody who's hurting or needs help or is having any problems of any kind because of the storms or for any reason, please bring it to our attention so we can help them out. So with that, let me make a nice quick introduction for Adam Mead, who's that fine-looking gentleman in the black shirt over there. You know, I could go on and on about who Adam is. He's going to be speaking at next year's Orthopreneurs meeting. Maybe we can steal him for a day, a little bit ahead of time for the Thursday beforehand for the Orthopreneurs RD meeting. But he can tell you a lot about himself. He's done branding and marketing and helping practice growth, but he really was outside the ortho market, I think, until Cole Johnson, right?
That's right, yeah.
So Cole Johnson, who many of you may know, one of the coolest guys on the planet, with I think he has at last count 32 children, right?
Yeah, that's accurate, yeah, 32.
And just for,
we have.
yeah, for the record, anybody out there who thinks that Cole is a virile man, he has nothing on Adam, whose wife just had baby number
9.
Yes. He has half as many children as there are people in this room right now. So the top 2 rows are basically his kids. So anyway, great guy, great human being. I've been working with him a little bit on the meeting next year, and he's also right now scheduled to be with us for the cruise. But Adam, let me see if I can convert you over to being the host.
Okay.
Maybe you want to share your screen, because you're going to learn about this guy, and he's bananas like me, but even more so, and I love him. And I just got to know him in the last few months. But this is my kind of guy. So he's going to show you his website for his creative website. And so please, Adam, take it away and tell them what they're looking at and a little bit about what is the land of Yog.
The land of Yog, yeah. So if you're driving,
This is disturbing, by the way.
Eyes on the road. So yeah, welcome to the website. It's landofyog.com, and it's funny because we have so many people that ask us what's up with the video on your homepage, and I wish that I had some sort of really intellectual answer for that. But honestly, what we do, we're a brand experience and brand design company. And so we deal a lot with trying to help our clients understand what their personal culture is and why they exist, and then demonstrating that. And so for us, I learned, gosh, this was like 8 years ago. I learned that the more I could be myself as the leader of the company, the more that the culture of the company changed, and the more that we started to attract the right types of clients. And so that's kind of how I think a Cole Johnson comes about, where honestly, the first time I met him, we tried to out-weird one another, and it just got really, really weird. And so the video, the website, it's all just, it's fun. It honestly is just intended to engage people into the culture, into the spirit of what the land of Yog is. And so as you go through, again, not while you're driving, but as you have time to browse through it, you'll see that everything is written as if we have a German accent. And it's awesome because when we get inquiries from prospective clients and people who are interested in meeting us, they're usually talking in the same accent. They're using the V's and Das ist gut and all of that. And Glenn, I think the first time you and I spoke, I think we spoke for a good 15 minutes with a German accent, and it was just a bunch of fun.
Yeah, this is how we speak in the land of Yog, yeah?
Yeah. But this is also one of the principles that we employ as we develop brands for our clients. It's we'll probably touch on it in a little bit, but it's all about trying to create the culture and letting that culture attract the right types of people to it.
Adam, do you mind? So for the people in this room, generally speaking, and when I say this room, I just mean this space, but generally speaking, the people that you're going to be speaking with tonight and who are here on this meeting are, for the most part, newer business owners, people who've generally been in practice for themselves, not for somebody else, but for ourselves, less than 10 years on average. And, I can tell you from the number of interactions I've seen, everybody's a little bit different. And, we always talk about all the forces that work against us, right? And I'm not going to mention any names because I said if there's one 3-letter name that I mentioned about orthodontics, Andy, I think, has the right to kick me square in the crotch. So I'm never again going to speak of the 3 letters that rhyme with F-T-D. But my point here is, can you explain to them why you call this the land of Yog? Because when you and I spoke about it, it was a really good way of explaining really what I've learned in 25 years of how you create a brand that speaks to who you are, and doesn't make you could easily have been a creative company, right, with 50 other creative companies out there or 500 of them, and everybody would come to your website and see about our company, about Adam Mead, why we do amazing creative, examples of our work. And that's what we're facing in orthodontics, right? We're in the masses. And for fear of saying that you're scaring certain people off, certain people will never work with you because of what you've done. But can you explain why you chose to go with Land of Yog? Because I thought it was a great explanation.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. When I started the company, which was a little over 10 years ago, started it out the corner of my master bedroom. We were about to have our 3rd kid. We lost our health insurance from where I was employed. And And so February 1st of 2007 was my first day of self-employment / unemployment. But I had some momentum going with clients, and so I had to come up with a name really quickly, and I came up with a name and there are lots of different strategies that you can deploy in naming. And the descriptive strategy is things that are very obvious, like our last name plus orthodontics, or in my case, the company was called The Creative System. Now, it was based on this really deep, rabbit hole thinking where I thought about the body and the nervous system and all the different systems of the body, and the creative system is one part of that. But at the end of the day, I was too blind to see that it just fell into a large vat of everybody else. And in fact, the color scheme that I was using was like a red and a silver, which is what every other agency uses. And so what we do with clients is really a lot of insight that we've developed has come from proving it to ourselves by doing it ourselves. So after a couple of years, when people couldn't remember the name of our agency, they would simply just refer to Adam and helpers, which really upset me because we're a team of people that all have different perspectives and we come together to do the work. And so I felt like we were not taking on the types of projects that we wanted to. We were taking on a lot of the corporate brochures and, hey, I need a pocket folder, or I need just an invitation for some business meeting or what have you. But it's what we found was that as soon as we took that leap of faith, and it was a leap of faith. I mean, I worked on names. I came up with 800 names before I decided on Yog. So it was carefully calculated. And the logo, we had different logos that were from very safe logos to what we have today. And at the end of the day, what I learned and what I try to teach people is stick to your gut. Like, your gut's going to tell you what to do. And yes, there are plenty of people that come to our website. We actually lost, and I think I may have shared this with you, we lost to another agency. We lost a big prospect. It was a children's hospital. Would have been perfectly up our alley and the type of work that we could do really well. But what happened was they went to the website. They thought the website was weird. And then they called in and they got the voicemail. And our voicemail, seriously, guys, if you want a good laugh of entertainment, call the office tonight and just listen to the voicemail, because it fits right into all of this that you're seeing. But what happened was they felt like we were immature and we weren't serious enough. And that's okay, because I know the agency that they went with and they were a perfect fit. Things would not have gone well in the long run with that client had they chosen us, because of the personalities, because of their objectives, and we were close. We were a close fit, but it wasn't perfect. And so for us, we're much more concerned about finding the clients that are right for us. And so people who see this and appreciate it and understand where we're coming from, of trying to create a very distinct culture that, yes, it's not going to be your culture, but we get that it's their culture, and we see how they've been considerate of all these different touch points and experiences. So for us and our clients, we try to teach them the same principles, that it's okay to go out on a limb. And I've written articles that talk about being unique, and not unique for the sake of being unique, but unique. So really being yourself and being the person that has the vision, and letting that free, letting that come through, because that's ultimately when people are coming to your practice, they want to know what they're going to get, and if we have a very generic, the way that I did with the creative system, we have a very generic type of presence in terms of our marketing initiatives, we're going to get very generic results in terms of who we're working with. But this is a great way to pre-qualify and find your brand community, essentially. And when you find your brand community, you increase your opportunity to have those raving fans that we all hear about and that we want to find and bring in.
Hey, Brandon. I'm sorry, Brandon. You're right above Adam on my screen, so sorry, Brandon. Adam, question. Yeah. A couple of quick questions for you. Number one, Can you explain to them really fast? Because anybody looking at this, right, is seeing Welcome to the land of Yog. And people, okay, it's cute, it's fun, it's got this weird dude doing sensory stuff with all sorts of vegetables, right? And when I asked you, what does this have to do with you? Your answer was absolutely nothing, right? This particular video has no importance of any kind, no relevance. It's just a reflection of the weirdness and outside the box thinking that is Adam Mead and Yog. But if you could explain to everybody why the word Yog,
Yep.
I felt that how you got there explained a lot about how we think about our businesses. Number two, which if you don't mind addressing, is how important is the name itself in how you name your practice? Because we're going to talk about practices. And number three, while I agree with you that I believe if we define our niche, we will get the people we're looking for. There are many out there right there in front of you who are scared about the idea of, I don't want to drive away one customer. I'm scared to death.
Right.
So if you could explain the benefits of why perhaps specialization and representation of who you, Y-O-U are, and creating that, the scaring off of people would be worthwhile for what you gain in the end.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Yog, name, and niche marketing.
And niche. Yeah. So what really, the major thing that hit me was, and I learned this, I was a Division I soccer player at VCU, played in the NCAA tournament, had a great career, played in Europe. And what I learned through soccer was that you have to lead by example, right? You can't tell people what to think or what to do. You have to show them that this is what they need to do or what they can respond to. And so as I was thinking about, we went through the same process or a similar process that we go through today with our clients. And what ultimately came out of it when we got to the end of it and all the feedback from our clients was that clarity was the thing that we offer, that we do better than anybody else. And being able to take a lot of this abstract stuff and bring order to it. And so the video and the essence of Yog and the land of Yog is that the less it makes sense, the more it actually does. And actually I had a friend who said, I don't get it, so I understand it completely. So the name Yog was through this long vision that I had of, I was thinking about how do I express the idea of clarity and clear. And so water came to mind. And so I had a ton of names that were based around water. But then I started to think there's got to be something clearer than just water. And so air, obviously air is much clearer than water. And so where's the clearest air? And so then I sort of envisioned in my mind, I'm on top of this snow-capped mountain and the Austrian mountain ranges in the Swiss Alps or somewhere, and looking over that plush, fertile valley of wildflowers and green grass and cows with bells, and down to the town where the town folk are running around with, oxen and carts of hay, but they're also dressed kind of like Dumb and Dumber did, in those really awesome snowsuits that they're wearing with the big fuzzy boots and everything. And the steeple in the middle of town, terracotta rooftops. And I think to myself, the air is so clear and I need to yell just something at the top of my lungs down to the town folk. And so since I was in, Austria, Switzerland or whatever, I started just honestly blabbering like a baby and sort of fake German words, and Yog came out, and it was really difficult to say. And I thought it was honestly the dumbest thing that I had ever heard. But there was something simple and interesting and engaging about it. And long story short, we ended up with the name Yog, had a contest, asking people what Yog means, and everybody's trying to read into it. And everybody was essentially pinning down clarity in their entries. It was really, really neat. So how important is the name in terms of your practice? That is something that ultimately is a case-by-case situation. It's really hard to give a very broad answer to it. But when we think about the name, when we put it into the context of people referring us. I've been on the soccer field, I've got kids that play soccer, and I've been on the sidelines, and I've heard the moms like getting heated about which orthodontist they should go to. Somebody opens up the can of worms and they're like, Tommy needs some braces. Where should we go? And then you have 3 moms that just swarm. Like, no, you got to go to doctor, blah, 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 blah. And they're very passionate about it. And they're all coming from different perspectives. And they're going to argue with one another until they're blue in the face to defend their orthodontist because they feel like they're part of the culture. They feel like they belong. But the name is something where if you hear, Mead Orthodontics, Krieger Orthodontics, or you hear Yog Orthodontics, it kind of hits you. It kind of makes you pause. So there are times where it is appropriate to go with something that's a little more unique or innovative, right? But then there are a lot of times where it doesn't make sense. But picking the right name has to be done strategically and done with a business mind, and not just let's try something for the sake of trying it, or let's be unique for the sake of being unique. Because even though we're crazy weird, everything that we do is based off of business strategy. It's so important because we're all about growing long-term sustainable growth, which I guess segues into the final question about if we make this commitment to really become more unique or more niche, are we going to start to miss opportunities? Well, I think that one of the principles I've learned in business is opportunity cost. If you are working with a family, a patient, or whomever that simply does not align with you, number one, they're not going to trust your opinion, right? As much as the people who really believe in what you have. They're not going to trust your opinion, which means they're not going to be as engaged in treatment, which means treatment's going to take longer. It's going to be more challenging for you, right? I think we've all had those cases before. But if you could imagine not having to pause and take the extra 15 minutes, which is a lot of time, 15, 20 minutes to talk to one mom that's so worried about her baby's teeth and doesn't really trust everything that you're saying. If you had that 15 minutes back and you could work with 2 other families that are just on point with treatment and really engaged and just a delight to work with, the experience for everybody is so much better. And it is definitely a leap of faith when you take it. But I will say that when I changed over to Yog, within 1 year, the top line grew 90%. And I attribute it to that rebranding.
Wow. So by the way, Adam, if you were going to be an orthodontist, it would not be Yog Orthodontics. You would be Yogodontics.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no question, right? So, in terms of, Doug will tell you that when he and I started talking about names for our practices, we went through the gamut, and I can speak for a lot of people. And please, anybody out there, if you have questions, just raise your hand. The way you raise your hand is you get over your little box, and then there's a little thing in the corner that you can click on the 3 dots. In chat somewhere, I think you can raise your hand so that he can see you, and we can call on you any questions you have. Type it in the chat if you have anything. But I can speak for a lot of people in this room right now, Adam, that when Doug and I started coming up with names, we took things so seriously. Like, what would they think about this? What would they think about that? If we use the word align orthodontics, what does it really say? Or level orthodontics, ascend. But ascend has many meanings. And, we went back and forth, like ripping into this for so long, it seemed almost unhealthy. Like, it was like, come on, whatever your name is, just move past it. And the culture is what it's going to be about. Does the name you pick play, like I'm Krieger Orthodontics, right? Nondescript. Most people who come in the practice see the culture. Do I need to reverse engineer it and take the culture of my office and go backwards and create the name? Or do we spend way too much time worrying about the name? And number 2, is branding a lot more than just the name and the logo?
Yeah, that's. I think your second question there really indicates the weight of the name. The name, the logo, the website, your business cards, your interior design. These are all different components of what we call brand infrastructure, right? So thinking about building out your office, it's all infrastructure. Just because you build infrastructure doesn't mean that they'll come. It worked in that one movie, if you build it, they will come. And it worked in some weird ghostly way in that movie. But for us, I think that you don't necessarily have to reverse engineer a name. So for those who have built some equity in the name, those are conversations we have all the time with clients. When we get started, they're worried that they need to change the name. We've built this practice for the last 5-7 years, and it's been on my last name, and I'm terrified to change it. You know what? If it's going to be something that could be damaging, then let's avoid it, because we can always build culture around a name. There are plenty of brands out there. If you think of just the simple ones like Ford, Chevrolet, they're all brands that were built around somebody's last name, So it is possible to create a culture revolving around a name that you already have. Now, with that being said, there are times where people come together, two practices merge together. And so that's when we don't want to start sounding like a law firm, right? Because we're going direct to consumer more and more and more, and we have to have more of a consumer experience available to our communities. So as we start to merge, that's where I think consideration needs to be made for what is the name going to be. And we've rebranded practices that are 8 locations, and we ended up 4 different partners. We ended up choosing the original founder's last name, and we went with that because there was such equity in that name. So each case is going to be different, and that's part of just kind of the consulting part that we go through with our clients, So there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's completely up to your comfort zone, but I think at the same time, be open to pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone a little bit, because that risk, you already have a lot of risk being self-employed, right? We all have that risk. But taking that leap has been rewarding. And so for us now on the branding side, we can judge and see what is the culture of the community that you're in, and does it make sense, to change that name.
I appreciate it. And one of the things I wanted to go on just about that, and Jonathan, I saw your question, so we'll get to that in a minute. But you and I have talked a great deal about the immense pressure that orthodontists face today, right? Yeah. With the mail order braces and chains and corporate entities and stuff. How can a brand stand up to, I don't have the funds that a Monarch has. I don't have the funds that a lot of these bigger direct-to-consumer companies have. How does little old Glenn Krieger in his little neck of the woods and his Yog-like brand, because you and I are very similar, and I would do some of the crazy things you've done. How do I compete with these big boys? And not just them, but I've just moved into a community, let's say, that's got Mead Orthodontics. And Dr. Mead's been there for 30 years. And every soccer mom at that soccer field says, you got to go to Mead because he's the man. And one person says, well, Krieger is kind of good. I just went to him. How do we stand up to all this?
Yeah. There is a lot of pressure. I mean, it's the whole industry is just evolving very, very quickly. It seems as if it had not evolved for a long time, but we're seeing with the onset of technology, with the onset of social media, with the onset of and honestly, I've seen the consumer climate change so drastically since the Great Recession. So we are up against a lot of pressures now and we got to figure out a way to cut through all of that noise and all of that pressure. And, I'll tell a really quick story. We, in Richmond, Virginia, where we're based out of, we have a client that we worked with a long time ago. He's a pharmacist. He has Grove Avenue Pharmacy, right? They're on Grove Avenue, this quaint area of Richmond. Independent, small business pharmacy, right? They are, to my knowledge, the only independent pharmacy in the city now. all of them have been bought up. All of them have been acquired by CVS, by Walgreens, and you just go down the list. Or some of them have grown to the point where they got to a few locations and then they were swallowed up by corporate. But how is it that he's able to stay Grove Avenue Pharmacy in the face of all of very similar pressures? And at the end of the day, it's a unique experience that he's providing everybody in that community. He knows the community. And here's the other thing too, is that, when you go to a CVS, you go and you pick up your drugs and they tell you what you need to know about, the cold medicine that you've been prescribed, and then you leave. You really don't have much of a loyalty, in my opinion. I've never had a pharmacist that I've developed a relationship with. The owner, Bill, however, is a different type of pharmacist. He consults. He knows his customers. He knows, and he's actually been able to help diagnose some over-the-counter stuff to help with some major health issues for his customers. He's developed, over a long period of time, trust because of this different experience that people get there that they don't get at a Walgreens or a CVS. People drive past those locations to go to his pharmacy because of that experience. And so it is very true. And I wish I had just a stack of these case studies, but I can find plenty of them where there's always going to be huge corporate, huge disruption models that are going to be coming in and just changing industries. But if we are true to who we are, if we can build a very boutique, and boutique doesn't mean you have to be small, but the mindset, because growth and scaling, you start to standardize and you just don't get that one-to-one care that you normally get at practices our size. And so the best way, or I wouldn't say the best way, but one of a great tool to have is building this trust over time and building this brand community, building a community of people that feel like they believe in what you have to offer and what you're creating and how you treat people. And it's unique, it's enjoyable, it fits who they are. And so they have a place of belonging. So if I feel like I belong at Krieger Orthodontics, then why would I go somewhere else to the big box? And I'm more likely to be a raving fan about you than I am to go to offer a suggestion of the big box. And at the end of the day, it's all about, it hurts my heart to see so many practices that have so many of these challenges with all the different pressures and even just our standard competition that we have, because we're not embracing who we are and creating this unique experience, and using all our brand infrastructure and assets to help communicate this. The perception that's out there is more of a commodity. I've written about this in articles where seems to be a commoditization of the industry. And so when there's a commoditization, it makes it much easier to just swallow them up, right? But if we have a truly unique and different experience, it's going to help bring people in who are going to be closer and more passionate and part of your personal community. And they're going to be your brand evangelists, and they're going to be your advocates. Oh, you're on mute, Glenn.
There you go. Best thing that happened all night. So there's a question from Jonathan. He says, if you're marketing direct to consumer, and please everybody, feel free to throw some questions in here about anything with marketing or branding. He says, if you're marketing direct to consumer, how would you structure your branding strategy? What would you focus most on? And he's asking specifically for a brand new practice. Okay,
brand new practice. So I have gone all over the country and spoken to a lot of different residencies, and I'll kind of echo the sentiment from the residencies. For somebody who is just starting up, when we think of fruit, the fruit grows from the inside out. It grows from a small seed and grows out, and And so I think there's a very similar approach that we need to take as someone who is starting up. When you're coming into, and I'll use Cole Johnson as a great example, Salem, Oregon was and still is a very saturated market for orthodontics. And going into it, we knew we had to stand out. And we went in a little more conservatively into the market, but what we were bringing as our conservative JFO was still radically different and very, very different and unique from what everybody else was communicating. And so what I try to urge people to do is really focus on the first step, which is, what is your mission? What is your vision? What is your purpose for doing this above and beyond just money? Because ultimately, that's what people are going to want to attach themselves to. There are plenty of studies that show that the millennial generation in particular, they want to feel like they're part of somebody who is mission-based, which doesn't mean that you have to take on the Tom's business model, but it does mean that you have to have a greater purpose other than I'm here to fix crooked teeth and make money. That is not going to attach itself to consumers. And then once you have that focus in place and start to understand the beginning of what your vision is, then I encourage people to invest in their brand infrastructure. Okay, brand infrastructure meaning your logo, your website, your interior design, any of the materials that you're handing out. Those are core things that are going to give you instant credibility when you walk through the door, and you're still going to beat the streets, right? At the very beginning, you're beating the streets, you're going out, you're talking to dentists, you're talking to as many people as you can, and having brand infrastructure that is unique and engaging will give you far more credibility than something that blends into everybody else. That has been a strategy that we've deployed for everybody who started up, is really creating something that's unique and engaging and based off the spirit of what their mission is for their practice. Then I would highly suggest getting as active as you can on social media, because that is going to drive more traffic to your website. And then also reviews, Google reviews in particular, because if you can start to pack in some of those Google reviews, Google's going to like you and start to surface your website to the first page much more quickly. So infrastructure, social media, and reviews, I think, are going to give you a lot of credibility from the beginning.
And Adam, just to follow up on that, let's just say I'm a newer orthodontist, just like Jonathan talked about. I don't have a ton of money. I'm starting up. I'm going to try to hit my community. I'm trying to go for as many things that don't cost me a whole lot, right? Because I'm not taking home income. I've got school debt. I've got a new practice. You hear about it all the time on Facebook. I just want to drop a few bucks, have somebody on Fiverr make me a logo. I figure I'm a goofy, comical kind of guy. He's going to, draw me a turkey, or something silly. Krieger Orthodontics. It's going to cost me, I'm going to throw out an absurdly low number that some people might say is very high. He's going to charge me $1,000 to make a logo, right? Which in my world and my history is not that much, right? Branding costs a lot more than $1,000. How can you, and you and I have not talked about this, just to be clear, this is not an Adam Mead show kind of moment, but how can you personally justify me as a new doc in business with no money, no nothing, to say, hey, Glenn, you need to drop $5,000 or $10,000 to get this ball going. And by the way, you need a $10,000 website, and, don't just go for the basic website, because there will be tangible differences in your life. Don't cut corners. Or would you say the opposite? Hey, pound the pavement, spend a lot of money on Facebook and Instagram, have an okay website that you had made by somebody inexpensively, and grow that over time. Where do you go from that?
Yeah, and like I said, these types of things are case by case. When you're going into, what I've found is that people who are in highly competitive markets, such as Manhattan or San Francisco, and they want to get into those really competitive markets, usually there's a lot of money that's spent. I've seen a lot of money that's spent on the office itself, just by virtue of the population being so dense. you'll start to bring in people, and you got to have a great office. And that's where a good place to invest your money. But then a lot of times there's not much money left over in the loan to be able to develop, a really cohesive brand. And that might work for a few years, and then it's time to reassess. But then there are other times where you're going into the complete opposite, a market where there's only 2 other orthodontists and plenty of people. And so in that case, you don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money on beating the streets. Your office can be good, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So each market is going to be different. Each case is going to be different. And so usually what we do is I just listen to where they are, what they're doing, what's important to them, and help them evaluate where to spend their money and where they're going to get the best bang for their buck. Because there are times where it is appropriate, and I just tell them, just go build a Squarespace website on your own, save a few bucks. If you get frustrated, we can help you do that. And then there are other times where it's a highly competitive market and we have to go with WordPress, and we have to do emphasized SEO work with the website. So everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's situation is different. But I think that the important thing, though, is seek the advice of somebody that is in the marketing field in order to make your final decision, because you're the one that's got to make the decision at the end of the day. And seeking guidance from people who do it day in and day out can help you kind of see things that you may not see already. Because it's certainly coming out of residency, you've been taught how to be an excellent orthodontist, and sometimes this is the first time you've been exposed to marketing and business practices and all those types of things. So it's all kind of new. So surround yourself with good advisors. I think that's step number 1, honestly.
So Adam, and it just leads into 2 other little questions. One, tell me what makes a good branding strategist, right? So I got you across. I mean, you seem like a nice guy. You've got a cool website. You're crazy. I'm crazy. Seems like a good fit. But what are the questions I should be asking if I'm going to hire somebody? Because I can't speak for them, but when I started, I had at least 10 or 15 people coming out of the woodwork from everywhere. Hey, I've got a friend who's a friend who's a friend who can help brand your practice, and he'll do it on a dime. Why do you want to spend 10 times that price? What should I be looking for? I know I can look at a portfolio that's clean and neat and beautiful, and that doesn't mean a lot to me. How do I know that, Adam Mead or Joe Schmo is the right guy for me to grow my practice? And the other question comes from Brandon Lynn. He just wanted you to discuss ideas on how to develop good authority marketing strategies.
Okay. All right. So the first one being that, sorry, Glenn, the first question was,
how do we all joke about how there are so many crappy orthodontists out there that the public goes to, and they have no idea how to choose. But if they sat with me, I could explain to them what they need to look for. How do I find, if I said, look, I like you, but I'm looking at 3 different agencies, how do I objectively evaluate them?
Yeah, great question. So what I tell the residencies is that you have to understand the differences between the out of the box, meaning not like outside the box, but you pull it out of the box and set it up and go, versus truly custom built brands. And that's your first task, is to identify which strategy is going to be best for me. So if I'm running lower on cash for my marketing and I need to get something in place, an all-in-one solution may not be a bad solution for you to get started. And that's just to get started, right? I still don't believe that that's a good long-term sustainable goal, or a sustainable method. But I think that it can buy you the time, if you're not in a highly competitive market, to get something legitimate, set up, and get moving. Going down the custom route, though, that's going to be more expensive. Just like building a custom home or anything custom is going to cost more. And so understanding the benefits of going custom versus going to sort of that all-in-one solution, start to look at comparable companies within whichever category you feel fits your strategy best. If you need to come out of the gates and really be unique, and you have a bold vision and you want to express that, don't go shopping for the all-in-one people, because you're just going to be frustrated. It's going to be low prices. And then if you come over here to the custom, expect higher prices, but expect to get what you're really wanting out of it. But start to interview people who do the custom work. The second thing in that—
And Adam, before you go any further, just a quick question because you hit it. If I was going to go to the cheap guys, what should I expect to spend? If I'm going to go custom to run in the circles where you are, what should I really budget? And is it tiered?
Yeah. So for a startup, from what I understand, this is just me kind of guessing. I want to say that for the all-in-one solution approach, you're probably in the 5,000 to 10,000 to get started, but they usually loop you into a lot of ongoing fees and ongoing maintenance costs. And I've seen that. I've seen it pretty expensive to where it's anywhere from 500 to 2,000, 2,500 a month, and however long you stay on the contract. Whereas if you front load the expense on the custom side, you may not have much of that ongoing stuff that you need with the all-in-one. So it's kind of amortizing your cost a little bit, or your expenses here versus upfront. So with the custom, I would expect, and it all depends, and it is all tiered. Everybody's different. Some people have, here's our package, here's what it is. The way that Yog works, as an example, is we have lots of different tiers, and packages are all customized based off of the needs, right? And we have programs with apprentices that you and I have talked about where we can provide discounts because we have an apprenticeship program that we're fostering called the Pioneer Program. And that's something that we offer to startups because they qualify for it. We're huge advocates of small business. But that's a Yog thing. Not everybody's the same. So the best thing is to shop around and just kind of see, but you could get in and out around the same price probably as the all-in-one, with the custom, or you could blow it out 50, 60, 70 plus $1,000. But typically that's for practices that have been in practice for a while. They have a lot of stuff that they've amassed in the community, and we need to bring all of that stuff together. So, it just really, it varies, but I'm right there with you though, Glenn. I would just be very leery of, we test Fiverr, we test all these different, quick and cheap, services that are out there. I mean, I'll be honest, I love the business models from a business perspective. I love it. But from a quality perspective and from what I think you probably would want, it's not going to be what you want.
Right.
It's very not deceiving, but it's very different from what you expect from the beginning.
And so what we were talking about was, can you discuss anything just to touch upon real quickly, because I have other questions that people have sent to me. How do you develop a good authority marketing strategy?
Now, I'm assuming that this is really trying to position yourself as a thought leader. Is that—
Brandon, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question directly?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. A little technically challenged. I guess my question was going back to with naming. I guess with trust-based marketing, if you're somehow seen through your materials as having a position of authority over your field, then that adds value and a built-in level of trust. And so I guess I was just looking for your thoughts on some strategies on how to develop those types of things. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great question. So I think it kind of goes back to that epiphany that I had of leading by example. And one of the important things that we work on when we develop brands is a lexicon for the brand. And not opening the can of political conversation, but you hear about candidates from all walks of life that will change according to what the constituents want. Whereas you have certain people who lead and know what they believe in, and they press forward. So in terms of being a leader, you got to know what you believe in. And if you speak confidently about it, then you start to lead by example. It's not telling. So I give you a clear example for Yog. it is an absolute no-no to use the word creative as an adjective. We never describe something as being creative. We do say that this is the creative that we have produced. It's a noun. It's the work that we've produced for you. Or somebody is a creative, meaning that's their position within the company. But we never describe the work that we do as creative. We never say we're coming up with some creative ideas or let's get creative. We don't do that because in our lexicon, we'd rather lead by example. So if you take that mindset and apply it to even just the words that you're using in your materials or how you, your treatment coordinators going through the treatment plan and the pricing and all of that, how we position ourselves in not an apologetic way, but in a calm, collected, and confident way, that's what people find. That's where people can trust others. You know, if they feel confident, they feel that confidence coming from you, and you're not trying to pacify the prospect by changing your practices and your procedures and the way that you speak. Don't adapt to them. Remain who you are, because that's going to create that leadership, and they're going to see that is that's who you are, and you're not going to give them any reason to doubt, because who you say you are is who you are, and you implement everything that you've said on the website and in these other marketing materials.
So Adam, I'm a doubting Thomas, right? I don't buy into anything you're talking about. I've been taken advantage. You and I talk. I mean, people here don't realize that you and I talked a long time about the fact that I've worked with at least 5 or 6 creative agencies in my career. I mean, big creative agencies where I've spent 5 figures like that. And I told you before I met you, I never trusted one of them, right? They've all let me down. So let's just say I'm a doubting Thomas. What's the process if I hired you and wanted to work with you? And for everybody out there, I do not work with Adam right now formally, right? We've worked a little bit on the Orthopreneurs meeting for next June where you give me some really good counsel. But at some point we'll work together. It's just been timing that's kept us from being together. My question to you is, I doubt you like a lot of people in this room might. And I think it's a fair attitude. And I think they should have that attitude. Agreed. Can you talk a bit about the process of, if I were to hire you and I'm spending 5 figures, are we going into a mud hut and smoking some peyote, and we're going to have a hot house where we're going to come to the idea of what it is that I should be? What is my spirit guide? And how are we going to exploit that into my logo? And I mean, what is the process other than, so I got a questionnaire, but I've done those for everybody. You know, what's the process?
Yeah, and that's where I think we're a little bit different than most people, because I think that the perception of, we're going to go into a hut and smoke some peyote, like that is the perception of most creative agencies. And I would imagine that a lot of people, actually, I was interviewing somebody for a position at Yog a few days ago, and she looked at me and she was like, "You're dressed kind of normally. I didn't expect that out of you." It's like, sorry, I don't wear weird outfits everywhere. But our process and how we go through things, there is a questionnaire, but for when we're really trying to create that brand community and that culture and that truly that brand clarity, it requires a lot of time with you. And so for Yog, we certainly start out with questionnaires, but these are very visionary oriented questionnaires. And we actually have everybody involved in it, your entire staff, everybody that's associated with the practice. And we have them fill these out independently. They don't share answers. They send those back to us, and we come and we spend an entire week with you and your staff and understanding the culture and living it and seeing the community. And, we talked about, like, should we change our name? It's hard to say. That we got to get a sense of what the community is like, of who you're serving. So for us, spending that time at the very beginning in market is really, really, really helpful to start to paint the picture of who you are. It's very difficult to do that from afar. Now, with that said, that obviously costs money for us to send a team of people out. So there are other ways that we can do that through means like this, through GoToMeeting, over the phone, But then there are some folks that really their objective is not necessarily to find brand clarity. It's just, I need a cool logo. And so there's a process for just going through more of an actual design. So everybody's goals and objectives are different, right? What we love and where we see the best return for our clients is when they go through the entire proven process with us. So why would somebody choose us versus somebody else? I think that we have developed enough understanding of the orthodontic industry that we understand the pressures, the challenges, and we've seen certain things. We've seen how people can be successful, and we've seen that everybody can be successful in different ways. And working and starting in a non-orthodontic industries, and we still work in non-orthodontic industries. We just branded a new mattress company called Luft, L-U-F-T. So you go to luftbeds.com and your coupon code is friend of Adam and you'll save $100. I just got mine the other day and it's awesome. It was on my Instagram story. But I think that Yog's perspective, and we've had clients say this, that Yog's perspective is much broader because of our exposure to so many different industries and understanding how consumers behave and understanding the relationships that we have within our communities. It's a very intuitive skill set, and so hiring for Yog is very difficult because very few people have this kind of intuition when they go to a place and they can sense the community. But everything is based off of business strategy. And so we welcome our clients to work through their mission, their core values, those types of things before we come in, because that is extremely helpful for us to be able to create and communicate your unique value to your community. Because if you're not sure what your vision and your mission and all of that is, it's going to make it tough for us to really create something that is, to Brandon's point, really genuine and pure and honest and true, so that we're developing that trust and we really are perceived as a leader because we know who we are. A lot of times it's hard for us to communicate it, or it's hard for doctors to communicate their essence, and that's what we're here for. But we do need to know, what is the mission? What do you want to do with your practice? What are your goals, your long-term goals? Those are things that are really, really important. So we've been told by countless clients that they've gone down the route with other companies who will ask questions like, what's your favorite color? And they'll arbitrarily throw out the color blue. And let's build a website. What websites do you like? Well, I like this website, that, and then they get a website that looks just like those websites. We go through a different process. We're going through a lot of strategy to understand the goals, the objectives, the needs, the must-haves, and the nice-to-haves, so that we can take all of that and the competition and the community all into consideration and create the best possible solution for you. So, oh, you're on mute again, Glenn.
Oh, just doing it when that happens. Ordinarily, these things will run till about top of the hour, and if you don't mind going a little bit longer, is that okay with you?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question from somebody, and there's two. I'm not going to let you escape, and I don't want anybody here to escape until you see Adam's photography, because that's his side gig, and I'm a photographer. And his stuff is, if you're looking for art for your offices, I sort of just blew it off. It was like, yeah, the guy does creative and he also does photography. His stuff is like insane. And it's beautiful and it's great wall art. And I'm not going to let anybody leave until they do that. And maybe I'm wrong. Does any of the money go to charity or anything? I can't remember.
Yeah, you're right. So because this is something that's more of my passion project, a third of the net profits I donate to families anonymously. And so a lot of the stuff you see is from Hawaii, and I've sent money through our church that we belong to out to Hawaii to help families. And then also locally we'll ding dong ditch, large Walmart gift cards on people's doorsteps and just have fun with it. But it's all about, it's really about creating a community of aloha and that's love and consideration and respect. And so that's the whole mission, is to help families in need through coastal fine art photography.
Nice.
And it's landofadam.com. I made it easy for people to remember. So landofyog.com, landofadam.com. And Instagram is a large community for me. And the Instagram handle is @landofadam.
Yeah. And it's absolutely beautiful stuff. And I don't know did you put it up on your screen right now?
Yeah. So it should be up right now.
Yeah. He does a lot of drone work where he shoots from drones and just really, really cool stuff. That's just, if you like Hawaii and you like ocean stuff, it's just phenomenal. So, and if I remember, you can buy it all different sizes, framed, unframed, everything. Your website is actually really amazing. So kudos to you for that. And I don't get a penny of anything you buy, just because I'm a photographer and I love his stuff. So the question I have right now, while everybody's looking at your beautiful pictures, is if you have somebody here says they got two practices merging together, neither one has a name based on location or in the doctor name. How do you come together and do that? Do you choose a third name? One is a bigger practice but lacks the brand identity, the vision, the mission, and brand infrastructure that the smaller practice has. So it sounds like, do you want to talk about that? It's hard for me to read because I'm getting old. So it looks like Doc Ackland, Doc Ack in the house. So do you want to ask the question yourself? I see you guys laughing there. So please, I'm going to unmute you or ask you to just ask away.
So it's actually Doc Ock. It rhymes. It makes it easy for our patients. And we always say not Doc Ock, like bad guy from Spider-Man. Doc Ock is a good guy that fights Snaggle. But yeah, so we're, potentially going to be merging. It's early. We haven't decided, lots to decide. And I think that Ock and his would-be partner are very complementary to each other in many ways, and have come to agreements on most things, right, if it was going to happen. But I think the name is just a huge kind of hold up, right? And putting egos aside, because everybody thinks that their stuff is like the shizzle, but just trying to figure out longevity of the brand and going with a brand identity and a name that is really going to translate over time, really capture the market that we're in. How do you go about doing that? How do you bring two practices together, make everybody feel good about the brand?
So can I ask one quick question? How close are the practices? Are you merging them into one location, or are you going to stay two locations, but now you're financially tied together?
So one practice is 2.5, almost 3 years old, one location. And then the other one has gone through a lot of transition, I guess. It's
right, multiple.
It's about in its
doctors.
Entirety. It's about 10 years old. Was one doctor initially, then became two. Then that didn't work out. Split.
There's two again.
Two again now, but one's kind of just an associate. So one is 10 years old, about has a brand new name as of maybe 5 or 6 years ago. 3 locations. One of those locations would dissolve, and the newer, younger one would become the third location. So 3 locations, 2 docs is what would be at the end of all of it.
Okay.
And Adam, if I can add one more piece of it, question to this, because Doug and I have been sort of wrestling with this as well. Because many of us in this room, again, we have one practice, maybe a satellite, maybe you get 2 doctors, and you merge them together. The inner struggle I've had is I've been Glenn Krieger Orthodontics. He's been Doug Shaw Orthodontics. We view ourselves as the picture, right? I'm the guy who puts on the Darth Vader outfit on May 4th, right? I'm the guy who comes in dressed with a parrot on my shoulder on Halloween. And if I convert my name to something other than what I am, I worry I'm going to lose it, right? So how do we combine these 2 into one and not start sounding like a monarch? I don't care what happens in the office. How do we avoid that corporate identity where suddenly you went from Glenn Krieger and all your patients see you as Yog or whatever it may be and think you're now a corporation?
Right. So here's one perspective, is that generally speaking, the consumer is very smart. So don't take this the wrong way. Consumers are very smart, but I think that in my experience, consumers are worried more about what is that experience going to be like, and does it fit who I am, versus are they corporate, are they not corporate? Some people care about, I don't want to go to it. I'm one of those. I like small business. I'm kind of a small business advocate, and I would prefer to go to an independent practice. And actually, my family does go to an independent practice. But I think that brands are built through a lot of context, right? So one small example is, Glenn, I've seen your pictures of you with a parrot on your shoulder on your Facebook page, and you start to see on Facebook and other social media, it's a great behind the scenes, and here's what's happening. This is the culture. If you look at a corporate Facebook page, and I could be wrong, I might be painting with a broad brush here, but generally speaking with corporate, you see a lot of like deals and incentives, and you might see the staff waving or something occasionally, but you have the opportunity to really be almost defiant in how you present yourself. And small business is kind of the rock and roll of business, right? So if you create a name that may be like a monarch, and we have clients that have names that are more of these experiential names. It's all about the context and what you put out there. Again, I don't think screaming from the rooftops that, hey, we're independent, we're not a corporation. I think what that does is it positions you into an inferior place because you're starting to compare. I've never been a fan of comparison marketing, because number one, you're advertising for somebody else, but number two, it puts you into a defensive mode. So again, going back to what we talked about earlier, and again, what to name it, what it all comes together, that requires a lot of conversation, and if then what, and if that, then what happens, and all of that. So it's very difficult to give you a concise answer. But I would say that don't be afraid to go with a unique name, because you can show through the context of everything else that you are this independent, thriving, unique experience that people can come to expect. People do their research, and they do it right here on one of these things, right? They do it on their phone. They have it at any point. They pull it out of their pocket or their purse and look you up. So being able to act independent, if you will, versus acting corporate is going to be your best way to combat it. Because again, consumers, they may not be able to pinpoint what they like about it. They may not be able to articulate and understand that it's because you're independent and you don't have all these, all this red tape that you have to, all these, the whole rigmarole that comes with corporate, but they sense it. And they want that, and they crave that. Who doesn't like personal attention, right? So they start to feel it. At the end of the day, if you're creating a very unique practice experience and brand experience, it allows you to be more confident in your pricing. So you don't have to try to compete on a mass production scale. It's impossible for us to meet those prices. And so the people that are going to go to those places because of the prices are probably not going to be the ideal candidates for you anyway. But I believe in the perspective of abundance, that there's plenty for everybody. Obviously, competition, all of that makes it very difficult. But I think that with a perspective of abundance, that there are lots of people out there who will be attracted to what we believe in. It will happen. You'll attract those people. In terms of settling on the name, you guys have such a unique situation, just like Glenn has a unique situation. Everybody has a unique situation. And so it's hard for me to say one way or the other, but I would also offer the don't be afraid advice. Just really what happens is, because we're in the positions that we are, we have to make decisions. We have to be bold and confident in those decisions. And my best counsel to people is just go with what your gut's telling you. Just because it's usually right. I know for myself, anytime I go against what my gut is telling me, it comes back to bite me. And I'm like, I knew I should have done this or that or the other. So, but again, surround yourself with good counsel. Find good people to advise you, so that your decision is based off strategic conversations and not just, I think it feels right to do this. That's dangerous. Oh, you're muted.
I know. I got it. Not a word. Zip it. So I'm going to ask you first right now, because I know it's after 10 o'clock your time and it's after 9 and 8 and 7 for others. Before everybody leaves, first of all, if they want to follow up and chat with you like they just did, I know you love talking to people about stuff if they're on their mind, just like you're doing here. How can they get a hold of you to chat is number one. Actually, if you want to answer that, then I'll ask another question for the group.
Okay, cool. So I would say first thing is take a look at the website. Website is landofyog, LANDOFYOGG.com. That's this website here. Take a look at work, which is work, just in Yog, and start to understand how we look at things. But feel free to email me. My email address is adam@landofyog.com. Pretty simple. That's probably going to be your best way to get in touch with me. And of course, calling into the office, you can call, and Arshawn is the guy that he's our staff photographer, digital designer, just does a ton of great stuff. He also helps with new business that comes in, just kind of asking a few questions. And he's going to ask something like, so tell me something cool about you. Like, tell me something unique. So just be prepared for a weird question, but he can get a time on the calendar for us to chat. And I love spending time talking to people. And if there's a little bit of advice that I can give you and that's all you need, then great. But if it looks like something that y'all can do can help you, then we'll start talking about that in the future as well.
And Adam, as you talked about to me, and I think you touched on it a little bit here, so that people just don't get scared off. I've seen you steer me towards, for certain projects potentially, towards the apprentice side of it. Rather than having to work with a full creative team that you've developed, you've got some really talented younger people that you mentor who can potentially do things less expensively than with a full creative agency.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a qualification process for that to protect the essence of the idea of the Pioneer program. But it's really, that's when you're starting up, you're not a corporate growth strategy. You're truly starting your entrepreneurial life. That's when you qualify, or a small business that's making under, I think the threshold is 600,000 a year. Is the revenue threshold for that. So those are some two critical criteria points that you need to meet in order to qualify for it. And it is pretty significant discount. Yeah.
Now for the $1 million question. You ready?
Yeah.
I've got a practice that I started with a few people in it, hypothetically. This is not me. And I have a team that I've been building. I like some of them. I don't like some of them. I know that some of them will be with me for 20 years. And some of them, I realize I made a mistake when I hired them. But, I'm growing. I'm not looking to change, but they don't necessarily get on board with my culture. What kind of growing pains am I going to have when I invest all this money into creating a brand and I've got people on my team? Am I going to have to start getting rid of people? These are the real questions that I know some people are going to be thinking. Do I need to start getting rid of some of my team members? Do I need to start rethinking if my culture should be what I want it to be? Am I wasting my money until I have my full team in place?
Yeah. So that's a very real question. And those are concerns that people have. And I'm grateful when they're very open about it. Because this is the hardest part of what we do, right? Is trying to foster the right talent in our practices and making it a place where people feel like they can achieve their goals and objectives. But sometimes people just don't fit. one of the things that we do actually, because I believe it's all about expectations. If expectations are as clear as possible, there's that clear word again. But if we can make the expectations as to what our brand is and the expectations of how we are to represent that brand on hours and off hours too, because you can't be contrary to the brand, outside the doors. But we have what we call brand alignment, which is a proprietary workshop that we've developed that we engage the entire staff into. And we go through just the basics of what is a brand, why are brands important? And then we talk about what is our brand, what are the components that make up our brand, what are the talking points that we need to know? And then we start to challenge them on their day-to-day tasks. What are your day-to-day tasks, like greeting patients at the door? When they come in, how do you greet them in a way that's appropriate for the brand? And so the great thing about this is it's a good training workshop. It's a good kind of team bonding experience. But the biggest thing that I tell people is that the expectations are crystal clear. This is how you should conduct yourself. These are the things that you say. This is the way you do not act under any circumstances. And so having real tangible materials and real tangible expectations as to what this brand is all about, you then have the ability to go and have a very dispassionate conversation to say, look, wonderful person, love having you around, but you're just not a good fit for this. And you can pull out that book and say, this is just not the best fit. Instead of just saying, oh, I don't like, you're just not a good fit. There's concrete reason and rationale. And hopefully as time goes on, those who maybe are kind of in that I'm learning phase start to move more to the positive side because they've had that experience in the training. And those who just don't get it will start to make it very clear that they're just not part of the culture. And honestly, I mean, every company goes through it. We've gone through it, and it's painful, it's awful. But at the same time, in order for us to do what we set out to do and to achieve the mission that we have with each community and each practice, we can't let things like that get in the way. And it would be irresponsible of us to do that, because it's going to chip away at the experience and the trust that we're fighting for.
So as far as first, anybody out there, please, if you have any questions, hit it in chat if you don't mind, or raise your hand. I see there's still a bunch of people here, and I want to let you go in just a minute. But if there's any questions about your brand, anything about your offices, anything that Adam has not yet answered today, please feel free to type it into the chat section, because I want to make sure you get exactly what it is you're looking for. It's important to me. So that said, this is Adam's, like I said, this is his art, and his stuff is absolutely beautiful. And I love the fact that, it goes towards a good purpose. It goes towards something nice. So Jonathan asked, what do you think about explainer videos and animations?
About it?
Explainer videos and animations. And I'm playing around with your Land of Adam stuff while you talk.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm assuming this is like more technical stuff, like how Invisalign works and those types of things.
Jonathan, do you want to chime in?
No, for example, like who the practice is. This is Dr. J. What can orthodontics provide you? What are some of the benefits of orthodontics? Stuff like that. That would just kind of reach out to patients or potential patients on social media.
Yeah. The video thing. One quick thing, Glenn. If you go down a little bit, you'll see where you can actually preview the sizes on a wall. You can see that wall preview just down below. Continue. Go down just a little bit. Yeah, wall preview right there. So it pops down. You can actually choose the size and change your wall color and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
So Jonathan, I think that so videos can be really, really effective. I'm actually starting the planning stages to do a video for Land of Adam, because they do just such a great job of setting the tone, communicating the mission. It's the reason why people, when it was a mass media world, there's a reason why people would spend so much money on TV ads, because there's so many senses that are being satisfied at one time. So video is great. Here's the thing with video is that it's not cheap to produce. So as an example, for people who are starting up, I tend to shy away from producing a practice video, because I would say on the cheap side, you're looking at $5,000 on the cheap side. Now, everybody has a friend, and sometimes we have a friend who really knows what they're doing and can really craft the story of your practice well. But I've seen where plenty of people will hire, local production studio. It costs $2,500, but that's essentially for them to kind of get a general idea. And yeah, why don't we just interview you here, and you can say this and you can say that. There's no strategy, like real business strategy, and how to communicate your story to build that brand community that goes into that. So really, to do that effectively, your baseline and cost is probably $5,000. I mean, normally 2.5 minute videos are easily in the $10,000 to $12,000 range for a really nice production. Obviously, there's scaling and everything, and you can get different quality depending on who you go with. And but I would say that if you have the ability to budget an extra $5,000 to $10,000 on top of the other investments that you need to make, I think it's a great investment. But remember that it's infrastructure, right? So it's not brand growth projects like dumping $500 a month into educational advertising ads on Facebook with your target. That'll give you a lot of eyeballs to your website. But your practice video is something that can really help communicate the feeling and the vibe. And the cliche expression is, you create the vibe to attract the right tribe. And so it can be very beneficial if you have the means to afford it, but I wouldn't put it at the top of the list. If you're a startup, I would focus on creating that core foundation, and focusing on getting out there and making those connections with good credibility behind the visual side of your brand.
Nice. Yeah, you said it perfectly. And by the way, I love this picture of the pineapple, by the way, pineapple party. One of my favorite pictures of yours.
Thanks.
I didn't see any other questions on here. And so, Adam, I can't thank you enough for your time and your kindness and your knowledge. I'm looking forward to seeing you in January on the cruise. So I know that that'll be a fun time for you to be able to sit and work with people one-on-one, and just chat and do that sort of stuff. And of course, I can't wait to see you next June, where we have a fun surprise in store for everybody who might see you on stage.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Which I cannot talk about right now, but let's just say Adam is insane. That's all I have to say. And it involves him being fully clothed, for that record. But anybody who wants
cruise is a totally different thing, though.
Totally different story. But Adam at landofyog.com, if you have any questions at all, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here tonight. And if you want to say goodbye to everybody, now's your chance.
Great. Yeah. And thank you, Glenn, for the opportunity to connect with everybody. It's been a lot of fun. This is honestly my favorite thing to do, is to be able to meet people and hear stories. Again, being an advocate for small business, I love stories and sharing stories. And so this has been a really rewarding hour and a half for me. So hopefully it was the same for everybody. And I really appreciate everybody's contributions and for the attendance and all the support.
Yeah. And I'm definitely going to buy some of your art at some point, particularly because it goes to a good cause.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Thank you.
Congratulations on baby number 9.
Thank you.
And let's not have baby number 10 by January. Okay. So,
we're going to try not to.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Good chatting with everybody, and we can pick up any other questions you have in the group. So have a great night. Have a wonderful week ahead of you, and make it a good one. Take care.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.